Greetings, fellow Americans. Susanna for President 2028. Welcome to the 2024 edition of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Fireside Chats. Last week we left off with the Economic Recovery Act section of the National Recovery Act. Today we're going to be talking about the security portion of that act. First, we're going to start with the immigration and border security issues. These are obvious. We have had a very significant problem in the last few years, especially with migrants just flooding through illegally. So we have a lot of illegal immigrants here now. My National Recovery Act and this portion, the Immigration and Border Security Act, actually focuses on this issue. We're going to start with something I've talked about in a couple of videos already. Technology at the border. This is going to be very important. It's going to be very critical to securing our border. A combination of security, like technology, and security in the form of personnel, such as our National Guard and such, is going to greatly increase the chances of our border actually being secure. There's some other things we're going to implement along with the National Guard being sent to the border. There is the idea that I've had about a civilian aspect of this. So basically a civilian department or a civilian branch of the Border Patrol that basically can be activated whenever we have crises such as we're having now. And these civilians would be trained just like border personnel. They would be an assistance to the border personnel that are regularly there. They would need to make sure their counseling was taken care of. They would be required to be in counseling for at least a short time, just to make sure that they understand some of the things that can happen, especially if they've experienced a traumatic event during their time there. Making sure these kinds of resources are available to anyone we send down to the border, regardless of whether it's National Guard or civilians. And there's a lot of civilians who would actually be willing to help in this area. And they have already taken it upon themselves to help in this area. What some of us would consider help. I think that it's a good idea, but with the proper training for these civilians, to make sure that they're not assuming something that like an immigrant is crossing the border because of human trafficking. It's important to understand the different situations that a person may be crossing the border. With the technology that we have through this plan, it's going to help stop a lot of the illegal crossings that we've experienced. It's also going to help in the areas where we're having trouble finding those people who are crossing illegally. Maybe they're using a different route through the border that we don't regularly check on. But right now, from my understanding, there's just not enough personnel to cover all of the areas they need to cover. That's why implementing National Guard and civilian aspects of border security is going to be essential in the personnel department. Also talking to farmers and those who live right along the border, asking them for their assistance, helping them with maybe their farming and a stipend or something of that nature, to help them in exchange for them helping us not have to build right across or right in front of their land. I know that was a problem with putting up some of the fencing that the Border Patrol or the National Guard implemented a couple years ago, something like that. These things really need to be handled carefully because we have to consider the humanitarian aspects of this issue. Yes, immigrants do need to cross by legal pathways, absolutely. When you have those who are being human trafficked, there's a little bit of a different situation there. Not everyone can go back to where they came from. Not everyone can go back across the border. So what do we do with them? We're going to have to figure out how we can deport these people, temporarily at least, so that they have an opportunity, especially if they're victims of human trafficking, instead of someone who's paid someone else to cross, to help them cross into the United States. That's a little bit different. When you're kidnapped and when you are basically forcefully taken from your place of origin, that does make a big difference. These people should have the option, if they so choose, to return to their country of origin. And we can help them with that. And that will greatly increase the chances of people who are crossing humans illegally being caught. Because we will be working with agencies like the FBI and Homeland Security, CIA. All of our agencies will be working together to secure our border, to make sure that those people who are responsible for trafficking humans and drugs and guns and all of the stuff that we need to stop to help make our nation healthier and less of a place full of crime and, statistically speaking, overdoses and death associated with these things. It's going to greatly help us reduce these things. It'll increase the chances of us being able to reduce the amount of trafficking that comes through. We're also going to be increasing the legal consequences. So right now, unless a person has committed an egregious crime, they generally don't end up doing a lot of time. So increasing penalties is going to also deter people from crossing borders by illegal pathways. One of the things that we're going to implement is working with other countries to temporarily house those that we have caught illegally. Perhaps we implement, and I think this is a good idea, implement a waiting period. So if you're an immigrant, you are caught crossing our borders in an illegal place, we would work with the country to ensure that you have a safe place to stay while you are waiting a probation and waiting period before you'll be eligible to enter the United States again. That is only if a person who is caught has no other crime other than just being there illegally. They've not hurt anyone, they're not on anyone's wanted list. They will be checked. That's part of the waiting period. They will be checked. We have to make sure to check everyone who comes through. There's going to be some changes to how many migrants we accept at one time. My implementation of this is reducing the amount of immigrants who cross our borders, who can come in through legal pathways, especially. Reducing all of that, including and especially illegal crossings. Reducing that to a point that we only allow 1,000 people in per month. That's per month. That's not including those who are from countries who are currently at war or under extreme violent conditions, like Haiti uh, like Ukraine, countries that are, or people who are fleeing from war-torn countries, so, stuff like that. That's already in our title. So utilizing that as a baseline, making sure that those people do have a chance to get in for safety. And then those who are just crossing without being from a war-torn country like that, they have to be very limited on how many we can accept. And that's only temporary. The length of time that this particular portion can extend to is 2 years tops. Only a small portion of it can be implemented on a permanent basis, but that would have to take that would be through some legislation passed through Congress, in addition to this legislation. So we're also going to be changing what we acquire as far as information from the immigrants who are coming in. We're going to be collecting not just what they tell us, but we're also going to be collecting fingerprints. And yes, I believe this is important because we need to make sure that they are not on anyone's watch list. And if a person doesn't have anything to hide, then they're not going to have a problem with it. We need to be able to watch those who are coming in at least for a short time, a probation period. I don't believe that this is unreasonable. And quite frankly, it does seem to be, the way that I have it set up, a more reasonable solution than anything that Donald Trump or Kamala Harris has tried to say they're going to implement. As far as making sure that they have immigrants have a secure pathway to citizenship, in addition to basically fingerprinting, identification issues, they're going to be signing a contract. This contract is the fast track to citizenship, and it is an employment contract. As long as there is room, we can accept immigrants to supplement the lack of American workers in certain areas. And we would provide training necessary, on-the-job training. There would be pay involved. And it would be a federal minimum to start out with, because when you have no skills, you need to develop those skills. And the better job that you do, the higher of a raise that you could get. I've seen a lot of really good businesses work their raising their wage system this way. It does work pretty well. It shows that everyone begins at an entry level, but your skill is going to be what gets you the raise, and that's very good. And that actually applies to American citizens as well, so let's not forget that. Americans do come first in any jobs that are available for the National Recovery Act. This way we can make sure that our Americans are taken care of first and have first dibs. There's certain aspects that are certain employment opportunities that I know that we definitely need some help with. And when immigrants and American citizens work along together side by side, that creates a really good community, making sure that our new immigrants are treated well, that they're acclimated to our society and our cultures, and understanding that they do come from a different place and they're new. So let's make sure that the people that we allow in see that we are not that bad of a country, because I don't think that we are. And I really don't believe that immigrants are going to believe that as long as they are able to successfully be here in the United States. We are falling behind, though, way behind, especially in this area. So part of the securities, the security section of this act has to do with education and public facilities that have been attacked by citizens or sometimes non-citizens. We need to protect all of our people. So, the National Public Facilities and Safety Act addresses education institutions, religious institutions, and general public areas, and then the security to be implemented in those areas. As far as education institutions go, there have been attacks ranging from very early elementary school to college. So it's important for us to protect all of our students and staff. Making sure that we implement technologies that are up and coming, such as a security technology that's very expensive, but it's worth putting into any school. It keeps an eye on all public areas. It has locking mechanisms for the doors. And generally, a locked school door cannot be entered, but it gives an extra security to those doors so that they really cannot be entered and can only be exited from by releasing a button or by just clearing the building. So there's technologies like that, and there are systems that are being developed and perfected for these purposes. We're also going to be implementing security guards of sorts. One of the things I've toyed around with, and I think we could do this either way, is implement a security system with personnel for just our school systems. The other way that I've thought about this, and I think the more practical way, would be to implement our personnel that we already have. We have security companies that hire civilians. They're trained for specific security jobs. They're not really a temp agency, but they're a placement agency. And you can see them on bus lines. You can see them sometimes patrolling around different areas like a grocery store, different stuff like that. So implementing that particular resource is going to be very beneficial to maintaining security in not just our education systems, but our institutions, but in all of our religious and public area institutions as well. I do believe that implementing some of our retired security officers, retired police officers, veterans, this is going to be a job that they could definitely jump in on. They would be preferred because of their skills in these areas, as long as they are able to pass a background check and a psychological check. It's important to understand where a person stands psychologically whenever they enter a job like this, because there are things that can happen that can re-traumatize or trigger someone with a mental health condition. And it's important to make sure that that person is aware, or that the company is aware. It also helps us determine whether or not we can trust that person with weapons, and making sure that they are not wanted on any lists internationally or nationally. So making sure that all of the background checking is in place, making sure that psychological checking is in place. Follow-up mental health resources, of course, always need to be available for these types of positions. And I think that that's going to help our security situation greatly. There's also there is also the general public areas and religious institutions. So my thought is having guards, just two tops at a church, religious institution like that, just to make sure that there's people who are there, making sure they're keeping an eye on things, and making sure that they are handling business if necessary. Making sure that police officers in the area at the time also, come up, patrol, talk to them for a few minutes, make sure things are all right, and kind of stay near, religious institutions and campuses such as that. I think that's going to increase the safety of our religious institutions that have been attacked by people. There's also places like malls and bus terminals and airports and things like that. We already have security at airports, and that's great. I don't think we necessarily need to soup up that security, but definitely making sure that they're on top of their game is going to greatly help us in the long run with our security. Making sure that we have extra guards that are walking around places, like on the bus, on public transportation lines, in malls, in different areas like that. Just having them, that little extra there, will definitely help a lot of people not only feel comfortable and safe, but it'll help deter people from trying to assault others there, especially in those areas. We got to keep our places safe. There's going to be some more technology, obviously, implemented along with these different implementations of the safety and securities of these institutions. Having, there's a lot of technology we have. Some of the things we have are like those batons that detect metal on you and such like that. We also have the metal detectors that you walk through. Those types of things can actually be improved upon to better detect a wider range, to also with implementing technology would be extra cameras in places like blind spots where you wouldn't think to have a camera, or even in an area where maybe it's too shaded, something like that. And definitely having security cameras and whatnot inside, extra security cameras inside, so you can get more angles, so that you can be alerted to things at a quicker pace, be able to spot irregularities, abnormalities in the flow of traffic, anything like that, just to be on guard. All of this can be funded through the Financial Restructuring Act. It's part of adjusting the flow to the right departments, especially because we do need security. A lot of people are so uncomfortable in our nation right now just because of all the violence that's happened. So it's really important for that to take place. We're also going to be implementing definitely background checks for purchasing weapons, and I do mean good background checks. Also psychology requirements. Not necessarily that you have to have a psychology degree, but having a psych check done and making sure that that is available at least to the place where you're purchasing your weapon from, so it's on record, and it will go to the appropriate agencies upon completion of your purchase. So, also making sure that we restrict the types of guns, or at least vote on whether or not we should restrict certain types of guns, like automatic weapons. Restricting those to military and wartime, it seems responsible to me. We're not in a place at this time where we need to have those accessible to the public. But other firearms like hunting rifles and pistols, and those that are not automatic weapons that fire at a rapid rate, with the single pull or single squeeze of a trigger, those we can definitely vote on the legislation for those to make sure that our rights are not violated, and that we still stay responsible about our rights. It's leading by example. We also have another part to this, the national systems and agencies. We're going to be implementing, this administration plans to implement a national healthcare system. The national healthcare system covers medical personnel, it covers patients, hospitals and clinics, and it covers all the finances. The national healthcare system is an opt-in. You opt in through your W-2, through your tax form. The opt-in basically takes a portion of the taxes that we're already collecting and directs it towards the national healthcare system. Directing that towards the national healthcare system basically pays for your medical. Now, it'll be taken out through your regular paycheck, but there will also be a percentage taken out through income tax returns. That all goes to helping pay for medical expenses for everyone. That way, everyone's covered. Everyone has the ability to go to the doctor and choose which doctor they go to without having to worry about, oh, do they accept my insurance? Or, oh my goodness, how much is this going to cost me? I don't have insurance. How am I going to afford to go? Emergency room bills are outrageous. So implementing this type of system is going to reduce the amount of debt that people incur through medical expenses. If people don't, if they decide to not opt in, that particular portion of their taxes goes to government spending. So there's sort of a trade-off there. And I'm not sure that everyone's going to want to opt in for something like that. But I'll tell you that with the medical personnel and patients, it allows for a regular set amount to be paid to hospitals to cover anything from materials and equipment to salaries, and making sure that salaries are reasonable, because it'll only cover so much. But making sure that we have that coverage is part of what's going to help make sure that our national healthcare system is free for out-of-pocket expenses. There's no reason why we can't do this. And having millions of people opt in is going to create quite the financial stability for the system. Making sure that patients are covered, making sure that with just a few exceptions, surgeries are covered, necessary medical expenses are covered. It stabilizes our health care. It stabilizes the access to health care. Let me put it that way. We also have, though, the national education system that I propose. It ensures that educators have a wage that is above $75,000 per year, and that's the starting wage for educators. Students would not have to worry about having to pay for meals at school. All of the education system's finances help fund, everything from school lunches and breakfast to a certain amount of recreational activities and educators' wages, making sure that the schools are maintained and the like. And it's also making sure that the curriculum is up to standard and make sure that our children are able to learn a multitude of ways and be able to access the right educators to help them advance. And educators are not just teachers. We're all educators. Even students are educators. So the national education system also implements peer tutoring through high school, at least. Graduation requirements are going to change a little bit. I think it's important for all of us to think about how well our education was back in the 80s and 90s, even the 70s. Our education was a little bit better than it is now. Too many of our kids do not understand a lot of what they're being taught, and a lot of that has to do with how our education system in each state has moved away from the curriculum of that time, where they taught you how to break down mathematical equations to simplify them so that a person could understand them, how to break down sentence structure in English, how to use phonics, how, language, making sure that handwriting was neat so that people could read it and not have to guess what you were writing about. So a lot of these things have been lost, and they don't teach a lot of that. They don't teach phonics. They don't teach writing anymore. It's all about computers. Unfortunately, for the education systems, things like that, they lose out. The individuals who are learning lose out because those things are essential for helping us retain those memories. It's scientifically proven that handwriting helps retain memories. It's not a cure-all, but it is one of the ways that we do make sure that we understand and that we retain the information that we learn. Handwriting, different ways that we've studied and such. So our national education system addresses these issues. It addresses safety, especially. It also addresses whether or not we should teach, or we should have our educators trained to, given specific training, I should say, regarding safety and those emergency situations where, you've got an active event, someone's injured, and you have to administer CPR or you have to administer first aid. Having our educators trained that way. I know it's a little bit scary, and that our educators shouldn't have to feel like that they need to be trained that way. But having that extra security for our kids is going to greatly improve their comfort level in going to school, making sure that they obtain the information that, or not obtain, but retain the information that they learn. Having those distractions can be extremely hard on a kid, and it's very traumatic, unfortunately. We all know this. So that is that's the safety, or the national systems and agencies for now. I'll be continuing with interagency cooperation next week on Sunday's Fireside Chats. And here pretty soon, within the next few weeks, I believe, I'm going to have Davi back on as a guest. We're going to talk some more about how we plan to implement the different aspects of our plans, as well as showing how we work together and how we are working together to bring positive change to our nation. Thank you for your time, and may our path lead to peace and prosperity.